Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Quilting Unscripted, where the chat is casual and all about things quilting. I'm Carla Alexiak of Quilting by the River, and this is my friend.
I'm Lynn Wheatley from Lynn Wheatley Designs. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Lynn. How are you doing?
I am doing well, despite the fact that we had another sort of torrential rainy day here in Vermont. So we have now officially logged in 26 weekends in a row that has had some sort of precipitation hit the ground. So we're just shy of the 1934 record right now. And so hopefully this coming weekend, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, so it was a great day in the studio. I got a lot of work done.
Today was the first day I took my socks off. I started off in a pair of slacks because I had an out day with the granddaughter and went outside for a little while, and it was muggy. So I thought, maybe I should go put some kind of short pants thing on, only to find out later this afternoon the wind kicked up and I actually had goosebumps. But it's like humid, warm, but the wind makes it, can't explain it. Anyway, yeah, but it is now officially, I guess the 21st, which is Saturday, will be the first day of summer.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will. Black flies have minimized. Not a lot of mosquitoes in my neck of the woods these days, which is good. But our new thing is pollen. We sat at the window this morning and looked at the river, and across the river, it was like, is this smoke? What's going on? And you could and it would whip past the window, like the wind, and then this cloud would go whoosh. And we've got about 2 feet of the beach that's all yellow, and all the windows are shut down because the one year I didn't. And then you're cleaning the top of your cupboards and in the what does my daughter say? Ain't nobody got time for that. So keep them closed.
Yep.
If you're out there and you're just tuning in, send us a hi in the comments so we know that you're out there and listening. It's always nice to hear back and see what corner of the woods everybody is coming in from. So I have to tell you, Lynn, I feel like this last month has been 6 months long in the sense of everything that has happened, gone on, and that's come through the pipeline. It's insane.
It's been a very, very busy month.
I'm scared. I'm almost scared I'm going to wake up and it's going to be Christmas.
Yeah. It is hard to believe it's the middle of June already. We were just together at H&H, and it seems like a million things have happened since then.
A
lot of miles, a lot of things. So, tell us a little bit about what's happening up there in your neck of the woods in the last month.
Well, I flew down, met you in Chicago at H&H. That was absolutely wonderful. We picked up some really good tips and tricks and stuff. And yes, I came home with more fabric. As a good quilter should. Can't leave the good stuff there. I was home for a week, and the week goes, by the time you unpack, get organized, do some odds and sods. And then I took off to Victoria, BC with my daughter and granddaughter. And we were there for 10 days, I want to say. And I got on the plane to go to Victoria, and my nose got hot and my throat got sore. And I ended up with a terrible cold. But, being the good grandmas we are, kept on trucking. I came home. I think I slept. My husband actually got a little concerned because I'm not a sleeper in the middle of the day. And I think I slept one day for like 2.5 hours in my chair. So, you recover, only to this morning. I came down here to clear my emails, and I had over 1,000 emails that I had not officially filed, deleted, and put into there, which just shows you the chaos that's sort of surrounded these last couple of weeks. And of course, the fabric for the fall winter 25 line of fabric for Island Batik came in while I was gone. And so I have spent the last week or so totally at my sewing machine. With just a small hint, it includes split recs. And, you make these designs and you're like, oh my God, I really like this. And then you start making them and you're thinking, the next one's going to be strips because, way too many split recs. Not to mention the fact, Lynn, do people think that you never make mistakes?
Yeah, well.
I get that comment all the time, like, oh my God, you made a mistake. Well, let me tell you, I made 32 left slanted split recs. I had them all. Our little mantra that we say, see it, flip it, sew it. But you're working with batiks. So there's no right side or wrong side. And you've sewn all day and it's after supper and it's 8:30 and you're like, okay, I'm just going to do this last bunch. And so I saw it and I flipped it and then I spun it around and I sewed them all the wrong way. Yeah. So they were all leaning this way as opposed to this way. I had trimmed them. I actually picked a couple of them out to see if I could meticulously put them back together, and no. So back to the drawing board and remade. I could sell them. Like, anybody need 32 extra right slantless split recs? I've got a box.
I see a table runner coming down the road.
But that's how that goes. So what else? I launched my website at the beginning of May. And unfortunately, we have these thoughts of grandeur, like, okay, next week I'm going to do my newsletter and I'm going to do this and I'm going to get this all organized. And then, as you know, now it's June. So the quilt is done. And my next couple of weeks are here in front of the computer. So I am going to get a newsletter. I'm going to do a montage of the last couple of months that I haven't been posting everybody's fabulous work that they send me pictures of.
Yeah.
Hi, Anne.
There's Anne. Anne's on.
Anne's on. Yeah, so it's just been crazy. Now, I'm almost scared to ask because I know you haven't been home because I haven't been able to call you.
Yeah, so I've only been home a few days over the last month. I flew home from Chicago with Carla at H&H, and I had just 24 hours to turn around and leave and head to the Mid-Atlantic. I went to the South Shore of Jersey on the first of a few guilds that I visited. First to South Shore in Cape May County, and they hosted me there for a workshop and lecture, and it was collage. This trip was all about collage. And then a couple days later, I headed to further down on Cape May to Cameco Quilters, and they did the very same thing. It was a full day workshop on collage and then a night lecture, and which was wonderful because they got together. They rented a house right one block from the boardwalk at Ocean City. So it was really nice. It was just before the opening of the season, so half the boardwalk was open, but there wasn't a lot of people. Jim came on this trip with me, and then we left the coast and headed to the Baltimore area, and we went to the Friendship Quilters Guild just south of Baltimore in Lithicum, Maryland. And again, it was a workshop of collage and a nightly lecture. So it's the first two guilds were interesting because I taught during the day, I went to dinner with the crowd, and then I did a lecture at night. So it's the first time I've actually been with a group of people from about 8 o'clock in the morning to about 10 o'clock at night. So those were long days, and then a day off in between. And then I returned home from that trip to turn around in one day and head out to New York State. And I went to the Peaceable Day Quilters to do collage again. So there were 4 guilds in a row in about a stretch of 2 weeks, and about bazillion, I don't know, 2,000 miles or something ridiculous between those 4 guilds. And I had just a wonderful time. All of them were really just wanted to be creative, wanted to try something new. And we're going to talk a little bit about some trouble my quilters had on the road in their classes. And this is a repeated theme now. I've seen it several times now, but we'll talk about that later. And then I was home for just the Memorial Day weekend. And then I headed back out down to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I went to the MAQ's annual educational seminar. And I taught Just 'Cause, one of my brand new designs that released last fall. And then 2 days of collage. Collage is a very popular thing right now. And then fortunately, my schedule got me back in town just in time to visit my local guild that I belong to. It was their annual meeting, the potluck, and who doesn't love a good potluck? So I was really happy to kind of reconnect with some of those people because, to be honest, most second Saturdays of the month, I seem to be on the road, so I don't get to visit with them often. So I was really pleased to be able to be back home and reconnect with them. And so that was kind of like my last month, almost completely on the road between the unpacking and repacking and ordering stuff. And we'll talk a lot about the ordering stuff later too.
Yeah.
And getting commodities and being planned for the next trip and then looking at the bookings for later. And so it's been a complete sort of on the road month for me. I haven't stitched since before H&H. The long arm has been empty. I pushed 1 quilt through in the couple of days I was here before I went back to Gettysburg. But the long arm's been empty. It's going to be loaded again tomorrow, and the long arm's going to start back up. So, and I'm behind on everything.
Yeah. I leave tomorrow for Toronto with a group of my quilters that come to the studio to quilt for the Canadian Quilters Association conference. The CQA, as we call it, meets once a year in rotating cities throughout Canada. So this one's in Toronto, so in our neck of the woods. So I've got my suitcase packed and got a little cooler bag packed, and we're going to load up in the car and do some shop hopping on the way down and go to the CQA. So I'm sure that I will see a whole pile of quilters that I know, because it's one of those yearly events that if it's in your neighborhood, it's bound to, you're bound to go. Something you had mentioned, you brought Jim, your Jim.
Oh, yes.
Husband and my husband are called Jim.
Yes.
So we have to distinguish about which one we're talking about.
Yeah, I took your Jim. No, your Jim did not come. My Jim came.
So that's a thing now that happens when they've retired. They seem to get these paid vacations. So there you are in whatever location I call it sequestered to, be it, sometimes it's a curling club or, a conference room, or heaven to Betsy, the church basement, and you're there morning to night. And then you meet up with your husband for supper and he's like, I went to the train museum, or I did hiking on the mountain, and they're all excited. And you're like, okay, so, I'm working on trying to get, a day or two after one of these out of town events so that I can have a little bit of sightseeing other than for the inside of the room that we teach in.
Yeah. So, my husband comes a couple of times a year with me, and it humbles him as to how hard we work when we're on the road. And he's like, yep. I said, sometimes that's just the way it is. We concentrate our work as we go out on these events. And then there are other times when we have downtime. Yeah. But I forgot to tell you a really cool, exciting thing that happened to me. My son is a career military. He's in the Army, and he works here helping. He's partner in running the Mountain Warfare School for the Army, which is stationed here in Vermont, northern Vermont. And So the commander nominated him to be honored by the Red Sox on the field at a game over Memorial Day weekend. So the whole family got to go to Boston. We all got tickets. We all got to do that. That was really cool. My son was up on the big screen. So it was just so totally awesome. So
one of those really proud mommy and daddy moments, you know.
Yeah.
Well, good for
it was really just a cool thing that, only happens once in a while to a special person. And, we're really proud of him. And, people who know us know that even when I was married, there was a Boston Red Sox B emblem on my garter. So I was married into a Red Sox family, hardcore. So, so that was really kind of special. So,
well, that is so cool. That is so cool. So out and about, yes, all those things that, a lot of the quilters don't know, that we miss your bed.
Yeah, miss your bed, miss doing your own laundry, just your own chair, just to relax in your own chair, drink out of your favorite teacup, whatever it is, it's that kind of thing. Being back home is good. And so, what's going on the design wall now is, we're both Carl and I are kind of working through the last details of that quilt, the Sun-Kissed Waves, the special quilt we just designed for the cruise. Yeah. So that's one thing. I also am putting the fun touches on my block of the month or technique building series, Over and Under. That quilt is due back any day now from Island Batik. They've had it since January, so I'm anxiously awaiting its arrival. So that's going to be published here in the next couple months, and the fabric line is releasing in July in the catalog, so I'll be able to show it then. So probably next time we're on, you'll be able to see that quilt live, I hope, for real.
So if the fabric line, Lynn, because I don't follow the timelines that aren't associated with my brain. So if the fabric line is being released in July.
Yeah, correct? So it's being released for ordering in July.
Okay.
So the shipments don't start until 2026.
Okay. So if you're a shop and you want to order some,
you start ordering in July and you'll get the first run. Okay. When the catalog comes out. I imagine the catalog will be out any day now, actually. It was slated for late June, early July, the release of the catalog. They released the last one a week or two early. So I'm kind of hoping, although, they've now split their catalogs into 4 a year instead of 2 a year. So they are working out the logistics of that. And they also have those other fabric lines now. Island Batik has 2 sister lines, Eco and Owl. And so they'll be releasing those as well. So not quite sure, just anxiously awaiting that. But I will be doing that block of the month locally, as well as I'm considering doing a quilt along.
Yeah, well, I'm your buddy.
That's right.
I am so considering doing. It's time I, jumped into doing the something or other. It's I have to say I love your pattern. So I can't wait to get my teeth into it. If you're just a regular quilter, not a quilt shop, and you're excited about the thought of doing Lynn's block of the month, and you want to peek at the fabric, anybody can go online to the Island Batik website and take a look at the new releases, or they put the catalog up, right? The catalog.
They put the new catalog up. So it's the spring, summer 2025.
Yeah. So you can click on the catalog and leaf through it and find Lynn's line.
I'll tell you the name of the fabric line is Garden Gate. So you can look at Garden Gate. It's by Kate Colleran. So I've done now several quilts in Kate Colleran's lines, and I just absolutely love what she does. So they seem to be fitting to my kind of designs.
I was just on Kate's website the other day. She's doing her own sew along, by the way.
Yep.
Because I have nothing else to do, I signed up for her sew along.
Nice. I was wondering if you did.
I did. If nothing else, you'll get the instructions and work on it. But we've got these new fabrics we bought in Chicago. So I'm sort of toying with that one a little bit. But yes, we had a chance to meet. I had a chance to meet Kate. You've known her for a while. But once I was on her website, I was doing a little bit of reading, and she's of Scandinavian heritage. So I sort of feel like she's a bit of a sister. So that was pretty cool. And I think that was the clitcher why I signed up, because she sort of in her description said that it was influenced by her Scandinavian heritage. And I thought, that's right up Carla's alley. So yep, cool. Yeah. Deadlines. So, and then once you get the quilt done, you turn around and you better get pencil to paper and start writing.
So everybody has kind of their own process about this whole how you design a quilt, how you make a sample and release a fabric line, and then how you get the pattern done and everything. And I've been really kind of like strict with myself. And I did this I've done this with several of them now, is where I write the pattern before I actually cut the first set of fabric. So I'm like the first proofer, the first person who goes through and tries to make it word for word. So I try and call out all the like blatant problems, missing things, that kind of thing. And so the sample quilt that Island Boutique has was made from the first draft of this set of instructions. So I am now getting ready to publish the set of instructions that will go to the testers. And while the testers are doing their work, and so I have proofreaders, I have math people, I have people who will make units and blocks. With this quilt, I'm not going to need a tester to do the whole quilt, because while they are doing that, I am making a second quilt alongside them at the same time. So hopefully we vet out a whole bunch of stuff that we are human, and we do occasionally have to have a correction page for a pattern, but hopefully we vet out. And so I really try and get that pencil to paper prior to cutting the first piece of fabric. Sometimes I don't get it all done. Sometimes it's about 75% written, and then I just got to, cut loose, like with over and under. I didn't cut the first piece of fabric, and just over 2 weeks later, I shipped that quilt out to Island Boutique in January. So I waited about the last possible minute to start, and then I just had to do it, and I did it consistently. But I pretty much know how long it takes me now, because I've done a bunch of them. So anyway, but yeah, finalizing the pattern, there's always that anxiety about, is it really correct? Is there a mistake? What's going to happen?
Understand what I'm talking about. And I feel bad. Now you do your own graphics. I have a graphic artist that does my line drawings for me. And over the years, and she's been with me since I started doing this, with the Studio 180 tool. So a long time, about 10 years. And I swear to God, someday she's going to quilt, because she's actually starting to understand now what the process is. But in that, she'll send me back some stuff, and I'll look at it and I'll go, no, I want the pencil right here. It's got to, it's like, oh my God. And I'm going, it's important. Graphics are important to our pattern people that buy
our visual learners. They like the graphics. And so we understand that and try and get them in there and get them simple, but exact, not, just giving you the points that you need, and putting the effort into where the line or the circle or the arrow makes the difference for you.
That my whole table of my long arm was filled with paper plates. I have 3 different blocks. And I did a pre-sheet, much like you do, where I did every unit and, calculated out how many strips, how many segments, how many units, blah, blah, blah. I didn't write the word, but, and that way you could pick up, a lot of the math issues, unless you're, remaking 32 split recs.
And the other thing is I have a bunch of classes under development. And so in July, I'm not teaching again until July. But I am taking on trying to teach the world what you can do well with the stripology rulers. So some people bought stripology rulers, and all they're doing is they're cutting their 4-inch or 2.5-inch strips with it. you can do a lot more with it. It can speed up your cutting. But there are some things it does really well, and there are some things that maybe it doesn't do as well as other tools. And so, you know me, I'm a ruler geek. So I'm now starting to develop a class where you learn what the stripology ruler is all about, why it was developed, and then you build a project with it. So that's in July. So I'm working on finalizing all the stuff for that, as well as I'm coming out with basic bindings, and then fine finishes, which are the more complicated, fancier binding or edge treatments to your quilts, like the facing and scallops and, you know, piping and that kind of thing. So there's a bunch of new classes on the development.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say prairie points, because I haven't seen a quilt prairie point since the mid 90s.
Well, there are what I call now the modern style of the edge with similar method, but a little different than prairie points. But you'll just have to wait to hear about that, Carla. I'm not going to spill the beans yet. So the other really, it's sort of exciting thing on the forefront is, I think it was announced today that one of the medium show coordinators in the country has decided to bring a quilt show back to Vermont. So there now will be a quilt show in 2026 in Vermont, in the Burlington area. And it's June. I don't know. I should have wrote it down. It's June. Anyway, Vermont Quilt Show. Go to Facebook. They got a Facebook page. It just was launched, I think like 3 or 4 days ago. Anyway, Vermont Quilt Show, June of 2026.
Yeah, so because I vended with you a couple years ago. Well, pre-pandemic, you know, it's pre-pandemic. At Vermont, which was that the last show they had?
That was the last physical show they had.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they did it all. Then
they did it. They didn't do anything in 20, but 21 they did virtually, and then I don't think they did another one.
Yeah.
So we all missed Vermont Quilt Festival. Anyway, so this organization has taught. They do the quilt show in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, which is I forget the name of the organization. Anyway, it's the term for the new event is Vermont Quilt Show. Okay. So Google that. You'll find it. We're all excited.
Are they going to have classes?
They are. They're going to have, I think, more than 24 classes is the way the first one is advertised. Nice. So I'm curious to see how that all is going to work. There's also, you know, free lectures. They have like that lecture hall that every show does where they have demonstrations and lectures that you can just sit in while you're attending the show. Yeah. Vendors, and they have antique exhibits, special exhibits, and then contest exhibits. So, you know, a smaller version of Vermont Quilt Festival, a little bit different. It's held at a conference center, not at the expo.
Okay.
So anyway, but we're really all excited to see how this develops and to have something back in our state.
Well, there you go. Well, and you know, I mean, for us Canadians, especially if you're in the Ottawa area, Montreal, even where I am, that little drive to Burlington, Vermont is not all that bad.
That's right. Yeah.
So, run. Design wall stuff, I have to tell you, it's niggled at me for a while. Back in the day, long time ago, I really loved doing stained glass, and I had done every possible technique. And the one that I like the most, because I don't like where you turn all the edge, you cut your piece out, you turn the edge under, and you flip it over, and you put another piece of fabric. I don't like that technique. It's very, very time consuming. And you know me, I get ADD once in a while, and it's got to go faster. But towards the end of my stained glass run, I started doing bias tape binding, purchased. And a lot of it was black or gold lame. I'm going to say I was a real Brenda Hennings fan back in the day. And, you know, I was asked to be artist in residence and put my, you know, things up for sale. And I had looked at all of my stained glass. and gone, oh, I haven't taught this in a couple of years. I'm just going to let it go. And I put them all up and they all got sold. And here we are. Here we are in 2025, and that is old is new again. And I've been asked a couple of times, are you going to do stained glass? Can you do stained glass? And I have no samples. So guess what I'm doing? Now, it is very hard to find stained glass patterns. There aren't a lot of them around.
Right.
And, we've moved on 20 years later. My kids would look at some of the samples that I did and gone, oh, Mom, that's so old lady. So I've seen a couple of them that you don't want to make old lady stuff. I've seen a couple that have more of artsy. It's not a picture of anything. It's sort of free form.
Right. More geometric, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got it all but the pieces cut out, and I'm waiting for some downtime this summer to do that. And you remember when we were in H&H in Chicago, and I kept walking past that rope booth, and then I went back and I went away, and we had to go back, and that it won't go on the wall, but I'm making coasters. One of these nights I'm just going to start making coasters. My big problem with making the coasters is my sewing machine that sits in the studio all the time is a straight stitch Juki. So I've got to go fire up and dig out of the closet.
Right.
One of my ones that does a zigzag. So yeah, all those things. But I'm taking the summer off, at least from the studio. I'm not going to be doing classes July and August here in the studio, which is pretty norm for me. Northern Ontario, our season is so short. That they go yes, and then you get the phone call that husbands decided that they all need to go somewhere to the lake or whatever.
Right.
So come July 1st, I'm not doing classes here in the studio. So I'm looking forward to some outside time for sure.
Yeah, well, I got a little bit of work to do before I get my outside time. So I have to confess that I really wish I could figure out how to make that time machine, because some days I feel so far behind. I haven't published a newsletter in months.
I know.
I just felt so guilty today that I just got up, and at 7:00 I sat down at the computer and I updated my website slightly. I did some other work behind the scenes, just trying to get things kind of like back in order. Because to be honest, I really love being with quilters. I love stitching, and this paperwork and all the behind the scenes stuff that, I do. I have to do like virtually 99.9% of this all by myself. And I always back burner the things I really don't like to do, which is, the website, the paperwork. But anyway, so I did do a little bit of that today.
Now, what I have to say about my new website is, because a lot of things have changed on that social media front for me. I was doing a bloggy newsletter thing on my Substack.
Yes, your newsletter is on Substack.
Off of Substack, which was the host to my website. And then it just got a little bit too expensive because, we watch those numbers, and I put it on to another platform. And so the platform was more for writers than it was for a newsletter kind of thing that I want to do. So I have transferred. So if you've signed up for my newsletter, you're still signed up. So all of those emails got transferred to the new site, of which in the next little while, watch, because you will be getting, I'm going to start off by doing a montage of all of the people. I think I'm looking at 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 photos over the last 4 or 5 months of quilters who have finished projects of either patterns or classes of mine. Some of them are class photos that I've taken, blah, blah, blah. So the first newsletter will just be a plain montage of looking at what's gone on and who's done what, and a bit of a quilt show good way to step into the, hi, I'm back. But yeah, totally agree. It is just.
Yeah. So, and usually July and August, even here in the States, we don't teach quite as much. We're not on the road quite as much. So I too will be sitting back and looking at the strategy of the newsletter, the website. How can we best utilize it, as sort of a sole person operating everything, as to whether, am I doing it the right way, or is there a way I can consolidate and be better and more proficient at what I do? So I will be publishing a newsletter soon, and no, you haven't missed any because I haven't published any. So you're not off the list.
When you're watching this, send us a message. You can email, Facebook message, throw it onto the YouTube, message us, and let us know. Do you like the newsletters when you get them? One of the things that I find about a newsletter is, and there's big controversy. We sat through 3 of these classes at H&H about social media and email marketing and blah, blah, blah. And I know now when I go on my Facebook page, I don't see none of my friends. It just feels like a barrage of advertising. And, do you like getting our newsletter? And I'm not going to start sending you one a week. Heaven for Betsy, I don't have time to do that. So it's, we try really hard once a month. Sometimes, like in the summer, the river's calling. I'm outside enjoying the sunshine and trying to get caught up on vitamin D. So, but yeah, let us know your thoughts on newsletters and social media and stuff, and how you're liking it, because that way we get some feedback as to what we should be doing on this end to keep you basically up to date, along with this, of course.
Yes. So the other cool thing that happened to me while I was on the road that I didn't even mention was AQS called me up and said they had somebody cancel out of the Lancaster show. And so I will be teaching a second quilt week with AQS this year. So in September, I'll be headed down to Lancaster and teaching my, technique classes for the wedge star and for log cabin. And then also 2 projects that have curve piecing and my lecture. So I'm thrilled about that. Apparently, AQS
is that going to interfere, Lynn? I know that there was talk about you getting together with the girls and doing a personal retreat.
Nope. It's going to be 2 weeks. There'll be 1 week between. Yeah. So sometimes, like in May and June, I was back. April, May, and June, I was back to back. And okay. I do have a couple of close collisions that are already set for 2026. But no, September, I'm on the road 2 weeks. 1 to Lancaster and 1 down to outside of Pittsburgh, and they're a week apart. So that's going to be totally exciting. And then I have set a schedule with both the shop here in Middlebury and the shop in Canaan, New Hampshire, Middlebury, Vermont, and Canaan, New Hampshire, which are the 2 local shops, for dates all the way through to January, and all of the topics. So there'll be some new classes. I mentioned a couple of them. But we're also doing a series of finishing schools, which will include anything but applique, needle turn applique. Nope. Machine stitched applique and needle turn applique are the 2 things that I really haven't mastered, and I'm not ready to teach yet. So the finishing schools will include any other thing. So you collage, curve piecing, traditional piecing, just general basic quilting. So there's a series of those scheduled for both locations, which I know people are starting to like because, just like me, I got a pile of UFOs, and there's nothing better than on a day, just say, you know what, I'm going to take a day for myself. I'm going to go hang out with a bunch of like-minded quilters, and I'm going to try and get some progress done on my UFO. That's sort of
a couple of things that you mentioned that sparked my brain while you were chatting. I do have applique method on my listed as one of the things that I do teach, with the grace and permission of Kathy Wiley, our Canadian all things applique woman. So applique is a needle turn technique using a set of rods, and you can either do it by machine. You can paste your pieces. stitch your pieces down, your petals, your flowers, your whatever down by machine or by hand. So that's one of the techniques that is new on my roster. But you're talking about AQS and this show and that show, and we've talked about this a couple of times, how like the US differs so much from Canada, because we have quilt shows, but they are just that. They are quilt shows put on by individual guilds. There's not a lot of quilt shows. Well, other than for CQA, which is once a year, we don't have, oh, let's go to, Winnipeg has this show, or, Toronto has this show, or, there just aren't any. And with the downsizing of a lot of the quilt shops aren't doing classes. We have retreats, but a lot of the retreats are put on by either guilds or individual shops, and 9 times out of 10 they're bring your own projects. So there's not a lot of teaching up here happening. And I just think it would be just wonderful to be able to look at our individual provinces and say, hey, this year I want to go to, take the big leap and do the Waterloo used to have one. Waterloo doesn't have one anymore. I don't know what happened up here, but it is very disheartening and sad, because as a traveling teacher, I get hired mainly by guilds. And a lot of the guilds just don't have the numbers to bring in a lot of us. So yeah, that's
with me, for guilds, a lot of times, like I travel to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, 650 miles from here. So I will travel, I do a lot of road miles to get to, where I got to go, Baltimore, Jersey Shore, Mid-Atlantic states. But you have to go where the populations are, and the population in my town is 1,000. So there's not a lot, it's a lot different than here in Vermont. And Vermont is a lot more like Ontario.
We could put half of Europe in Ontario.
Right.
We're headed in July to a family reunion in Saskatchewan, and there was that brief moment of, should we drive? And it's like, no, it's like 18 hours just to 12 to Thunder Bay, and you're up in no man's land fighting the moose off the road, and driving through what is actually the tundra. And it's like, no, we'll fly. It'll be okay. But yeah, I've thought about it.
So there's a couple topics we wanted to kind of like talk more from a technical side tonight. And one of them is just to let you know about how the tariffs have sort of impacted a little bit. It's gotten a little bit better recently, but for me, I go event to event, and I don't own a brick and mortar, so I don't sell out of my house. So I don't stock anything other than what I really project to be using at an event, or I think I might sell to people at an event. So I am purchasing commodities in every couple of weeks. Well, it has been tough. I've gone through a period of having to seek Steam-A-Seam, which is it's the main adhesive used in this collage technique by Laura Heine. And I've had to seek that commodity from other designers to make my commitments this spring. Also, magic pins were on the, can't get from our distributors. They were completely off, along with things like the Tudo cases went off for a while, and some of the Martelli stuff. And
Bowen's off now.
Yeah, so Bowen's off.
On the Canadian side, a lot of the distributors, and Lynn and I deal with like one major house distributor that I would say puts forth most of the quilting notions that you're finding in the quilt shops. And they've taken them, if you're an international customer, so coming from Canada, we don't even see them.
Yeah.
So when they've just taken those products not visible to us because of the tariffs. So if you walk into a quilt shop and it's not there, that thing that you like, it's just one of those struggles.
Yeah. So the Karen K. Buckley scissors were short. And our distributor, I called them up and I said, I've had these on order for 6 weeks. What's the deal? And at that point, They had just gotten 12,000 pairs of those scissors. These little blue things right here that everybody loves. And they were still fulfilling orders in February. And I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I did buy a few pairs to get me through from another colleague, but just we've had to scramble a little bit and figure out how to get commodities in a timely manner to meet our demands. So that's what's been going on. It's getting better. Some commodities are getting back in stock again, and they're starting to show up again, because what's happened is our distributors are just taking them off. You can't even see the commodity until they have secured sort of the streamline has been re-established, and they have some sort of idea as to what the commodity, one, will cost, and two, will arrive. So
I had a group of quilters in the studio a couple of days ago, and I mean, we love the magic pins, but the thinner the pin, the easier it is that it bends. Yes. And hers bent, and I happen to say, oh, just be careful with those, because they're we can't get them right now. And she says, oh dear, I'm going to feel like my husband. I'm going to get the hammer and try to straighten out my sayas.
Yeah. So anyway, so sort of be patient with our quilt stores and, us as a traveling instructor, if we don't have all the commodities that you want. But tell your quilt store what you want. They'll keep at it. And as soon as it's available, they'll let you know. So that's one thing. So while I was on the road, so we'll speak of a problem commodity. So Steam-A-Seam. So anybody who's done a Laura Heine collage knows that Steam-A-Seam 2 is used as the main adhesive. Okay, looks like this. This is the brand. Okay, there's a regular and a light. The regular is just a thicker sheet of adhesive. Okay, comes in a roll, and it should be able to release. You should be able to release the paper from one edge, stick it to your fabric, because it's this matrix of like honeycomb sheet adhesive. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I'd like to be able to see this. So it's this sheet of adhesive. Yeah. See that? Yeah. It's like a web, right? And it's tacky on both sides. So that's a characteristic that makes it different than every other sort of fusible adhesive we have in the applique world. Now,
and you like it? Why? Why Steam-A-Seam for collage linen and nothing else?
So here's why. Because when you have your little pieces like this and you peel it off, okay, you take your release liner off the back and you're going to stick this down. See, it's sticking to my finger. So you can put it on your collage, and then you can take it off and move it over if you need to. So it's repositionable a million times before you fuse it. So as long as you don't hit heat to this, you can move it all around your collage. So see, you can put it on the board, and you can pick it up and you can move it over. I want it over here.
So, which means that you might have thought that was great for the eyeball of the chicken, and then turned around and gone, oh no, I don't like that one. I want
exactly. So that's the deal with Steam-A-Seam 2. It is repositionable, stays tacky. Yeah. So if it is not tacky, or if when you go to peel it off your little flower and the adhesive stays on the paper, so it stays on the release liner, okay? So here's the release liner from the other flower. If it stays on the paper that I've torn off, okay, or it's dry, or you're struggling with it, it has, one, either been manufactured bad, and I have only seen 2 batches in my entire career of collage, and I have bought thousands of yards of this now, through the distribution into the quilters world. So that's your shops, that's your independents, okay? And both of those batches have been 24-inch wide. Now, hold that thought for a minute. I have seen, however, several, more than a half a dozen occurrences in the last 4 months where Steam-A-Seam has been purchased from Amazon, and they purchase 24-inch wide, 3-yard box. Okay, because most of your collages, that's about what you're going to use. Not quite all of them use that much. But anyway, the point being is not sure how we can tell. I would think with Amazon that the products and commodities would move quite quickly through that system because they're known for moving product. They're known for not warehousing it much other than what's moving. So I don't know what the problem was with that steam seam, but it was not the paper after you steamed it on and got it on your motifs and got it all cut out. We could not get the paper off it without destroying that honeycomb of adhesive. If that is to occur, button that box back up, get to Amazon and get a refund and tell them it's damaged. Okay. Now, if you have steam seam that's been around for a long time, the same thing can happen to it. If it will fuse correctly, you can use it. And if the release liner will come off, you can use it. If it's not as tacky, you're just going to have the problem that it won't stay in place. Yeah. So use it for your applique where that doesn't matter. Okay. But while you store your steam seam, put it in an airtight bag. You don't want it seeing dehumidified air over a long period of time because it will dry out, even though it's tacky. So it has moisture in it. So that's the skinny with steam seam and the troubles that I've seen recently in the last like 4 months that I've been on the road and seen a lot of quilters, a lot of different batches of steam seam. So
I was in Maine doing my week-long program, and one of the quilters there was making a placemat, and she was appliquing raw edge, appliquing these motifs onto this placemat fabric. And I happened to look over, and she had this product called Hot Fix, and I'm like, well, what's this? Like, why? Well, this is new. I haven't heard of this before. And she goes, I love it. She says, it doesn't need to be, it's permanent. It doesn't come off. It doesn't come off. You iron it on and it is on there. Now, we've all seen these products come and used in different circumstances. And a lot of times if you're doing the fusible applique onto a quilt, generally they need to be overstitched so that the edges stay down. Eventually the edges fray. They're satin stitching them. And I've seen satin stitching pieces over the period of time. Actually, the fibers are broken and the piece comes off. And I mean, for me personally, if I'm going to put applique on a quilt that's going to be washed, I'm raw edge turning it and either stitching it down by machine or hand. But this Hot Fix stuff, okay? So one of my quilters here came in the other day and she's like, Hot Fix? Oh my God, I've been looking all over for this stuff. And I'm like, okay, she's been appliquing on her shoes. Okay, so she bought white runners and she cut out her favorite motifs from her favorite fabric, ironed it on. So what the package says. Now, I brought in rolls, of which got gobbled up immediately, and it's summer, so I'm shut down for a while, so I won't be. But I also have the sheets. So the sheet is 12 by 12, and there's 6 sheets in a package. It says permanent bond, washable, no stitching required, can be stitched over, won't come up your needle, print designs on paper backing with inkjet printer and cut with scissors. That's a new one. Great for patches, traceable backing, and works with fabric, paper, wood, or more. So she bought a roll and she has just been going crazy. Now, she did do a collage piece with it, and knows that it's not repositionable and is just fine with that because, temporary lays them out and then that's how that goes. Yeah. So, there's all kinds of new stuff they're always coming out with. But if you're looking to applique on shoes.
Yep, absolutely.
Hot Fix.
Hot Fix. So those are a couple of fusibles that are out there. There are others, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about the steam seam journey. And Carla has recently run into this Hot Fix.
Yep.
So the other really interesting news that hit over the last week or so is that the big four pattern makers, so Simplicity, McCall's, Butterick, and Vogue, have all been purchased by a liquidator. So that means we're not really sure because the liquidator hasn't absolutely said what they're going to do with this, but they are not printing their patterns right now. They are not developing. They are not doing anything. Those four companies are done. And this liquidator, it's in the liquidator's hands. So just
I was
remember that
I was driving past this yard sale the other day, and I was thinking about our conversation, because what do you see when you go to somebody's house who's a sewer? You generally find that box of Simplicity or Butterick patterns, and everybody's like, oh yeah, no. You watch, they're going to be a hot commodity here pretty
you
soon.
can see all of them, all the really good condition patterns are probably going to hit Etsy now. But it just brings to light that support that small, independent, and medium-sized pattern writer. There's a whole bunch of people, garment, we mainly think of those companies as garment designers. They're designing garment patterns. There are a whole bunch of small independents. And
the bucket hat. What have I been watching lately? The bucket hat is really hot. There's an apron out there that is all over Facebook. And she puts it on like a coat and it crosses in her back.
Yeah, it crosses over the back. Yeah, so go out and seek out those independent pattern writers and find you can find very unique, well-designed garments from those guys and support them, because you know what, we don't support them. It's this, we're all in this together. And so supporting your local quilt shop, supporting us as we go on the road, take a class from us or buy a pattern. It's all about keeping this community alive. So just wanted you to know that that's a big impact in our world, with
well, and Lynn, you and I talk quite frequently about, if you were to talk to us 10 years ago, we would have had no problem looking 10 years in the future. And if you talk to us today, and I often tell my students when the new fabric comes in, I'm like, I don't know how sustainable this can be with the prices that we're being faced with. Your queen size quilt, 11 meters of fabric at $22, $23, $24 a meter. Oh my goodness. That's why miniatures are cool. We got to start doing miniatures. But yeah, it is. I don't know. But yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Canadian designers that people don't even know exist. And a lot of the little guys. So yeah.
So look for those guys. Chat it up online. They'll pop out of the woodwork. Every day I see somebody new that I had no idea what she was doing or he was doing. And so that's the news from the big four that I heard while I was on the road last week.
Something that we haven't chatted about yet tonight. The countdown. The countdown is on. The cruise countdown.
The cruise, yes. The countdown is on. Yes, we're inside about 10 months now, so it's next April, and we're.
So Lynn and I are now in total panic mode, going, okay, we've got to figure out when we're buying this fabric, how much fabric we're buying. We've got to get the sample done. Blah blah blah. So there's never a dull moment in the gray matter up here. But yeah. Now, if anybody's watching and you're one of the 3 from Southern Ontario, Oshawa area that's friends with Shirley, for sure. We're looking forward to having you along. Yeah. We have a meeting with the cruise director next Monday, just to talk numbers, but it really looks like we have a lovely group.
Yes, we do.
Excited.
Yeah, very excited about this. And really excited about making that sample and getting that order in. So watching the commodities and making sure we're going to get those bolts of fabric in time to get those up. So
if you're thinking about it, there is still time to register for the cruise. We are not full, and registration has not been shut off. So definitely give the cruise line a call, Michelle. At
so the website is scrolling on the bottom, and then you can from that page you can get how to get a hold of, how to register, how to get a hold of Michelle. If you have questions, also shout out to Carla or I. We can answer some of the questions. Some of the questions we can't. They're really, if they're more cruise or, you know, the registration related, then they'll have to go to Michelle at Quilting Adventures. But she's really nice. She's very nice to work with. She's very accommodating, and she says, you know, everybody has a little different take on how they want their cruise to go, and so she's accommodating in that way. You know, about your room, about, you know, how you're going to get there, whether you want help with airfare if you're flying into Fort Lauderdale, that kind of stuff. You know, do you want to come in the day before? What do you want to do? So she's very helpful.
Yeah.
There.
I was talking to my Canadian girls, and being that we're having to fly down to Florida from Canada, whatever, blah, blah. I said that we would, you know, think about, as time gets closer, maybe doing a Facebook group and the odd Zoom call with everybody, just to keep them in the loop, or to have a meeting with everybody so that you could talk about, you know, what hotel we're staying at. I know that, you know, there are 3 or 4 to choose from, but I think my feeling that I've got from speaking to them has been, you know, if you're at this hotel, we want to be at that hotel as well. Right. So maybe if we can sort of get everybody at the same hotel and do a little get together the night before, that's, you know, just, it's fun.
Because it's all about the adventure. All about the adventure.
And after next Monday, Lynn, I will allow myself after next Monday to start looking for matching sundresses.
Yeah. Carla's head of fashion for this cruise.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go along with it. We'll see what she comes up with. But it certainly is going to be an absolutely wonderful time. You know, half a vacation, half a quilting retreat, just the best of both worlds, the sun, the blue ocean. I mean,
don't have to shovel snow.
Don't have to cook any food.
No vacuum cleaners. We could just keep going and going and going.
Right. So, yeah. So very excited about that. So I think that probably makes it a wrap for now. I know we talked about a lot, but it's been a really busy month for the two of us, and we wanted to share some of the industry news as well as what's been going on in our design world and studio. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us today.
Things to look forward to for the summer. We're doing the July 16th thing. I'll just be coming back from the family reunion in Saskatchewan. So I don't know. I might be talking about pierogies.
Who knows? Hopefully I'll be talking about wrapping up a few of these business things and having some fun in the recreational world. They do have a little bit of a special event happening, but I can't talk about that.
And then
so anyway, and then August is a special.
August is special because every year I host Lynn and our 2 other buddies, Jackie and Katrina, and they come up here for, I don't know, 7.
Quilting by the river.
We're quilting by the river. They're staying in the loft. So if you take a look at the loft booking, and the first couple of weeks of August is unavailable, it's because the buddies are up, and we set up sewing machines, and we sew, and we visit, and we chat, and we pick brains, and it's just a whole pile of days of overwhelming friends and information, and floating down the river on the little floaty seat. Yeah.
So we'll be together. So we won't be split screen. We'll actually be able to poke at each other instead of just, you know, hi, Carla. We'll actually be able to like really poke. So that'll be a blast to be together, just like we were at H&H. Hopefully we won't have as many technical difficulties or challenges, technical challenges. We won't. But anyway, that's super exciting. And that will sort of be one of the summer sort of Quilting Unscripted events to be memorable. So
We
between
should do it
now and
on the dock.
yeah, on the dock.
We'll do it on the dock, and then all the quilters will just be sad.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
they'll all want to.
either that or they'll book your loft.
Come
Or
stay at
it'll
the
get
loft.
me some loft bookings. The loft is absolutely gorgeous. It really is. It's just a very comfortable space, a beautiful view of the river, nice, comfortable, cozy chairs, and just pleasant. So check the loft out. It is a great place. I drive, 10 hours to get there, and I am totally excited every time I do. I get in the car first thing in the morning and off I go. So yeah, looking forward to August. So anyway,
so
if
lots
you've been,
to look forward to.
yeah, lots to look forward to. So if you liked this chat, then be sure to follow us and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button because that's what keeps us going. Okay. So tune in. You can also remember these are recorded, so you can always see them. If you miss one, you can see them by going to our YouTube channel.
Leave comments.
Yep.
Let us know, if you have something to add to anything that we've talked about, any little questions that I've put out there about, getting back to us about whatever. Tell us what you like with regards to Steam a Seam. Have you tried Hotfix? All of that stuff. We love to hear from you. And from my neck of the woods to your neck of the woods, be safe out there. It's summer. The traffic is heavy. You're boating, you're swimming, just have fun, get outside, get some D's.
Yep. Vitamin D. Get some fresh air.
Yep.
There'll be a few bug bites, hopefully not too many ticks, but, keep enjoying life because, it's one day at a time sometimes, but enjoy every day. See if you can get a little bit of stitching in, even if it's a little hand stitching, a few inches of that binding that's been bugging you that you haven't gotten done.
Binding outside is lovely.
Yes. So keep inspired and keep enjoying your quilting journey. Make it your journey. And we will see you here in July.
All right. Well, bye, everybody. Good night, Lynn.
Good night, Carla. Bye, everybody.